Before we go any deeper, if you haven't watched the first 2 chapters of this story, you've only seen the surface. Those videos revealed how these ships arrived here and why America chose to forget them. But what you are about to see now, what remained hidden in the shadows of these silent vessels, changes the meaning of this graveyard forever. This is Chapter 3 of America's Silent Ships. By the 1990s, technology began to change the way people saw the Arthur Kill. No longer just a hazy memory or a hidden industrial secret, the ship graveyard became a subject of serious study and public fascination. Sonar surveys revealed the scale of the site in unprecedented detail. Researchers mapped submerged hulls with precision, identifying vessels previously thought lost to history. Patterns emerged: clusters of tugboats, fireboats, barges, and supply vessels arranged almost as if by design. Each cluster told its own story: war logistics, industrial transport, municipal service, even the remnants of Prohibition-era smuggling operations. Divers were deployed to confirm findings, documenting hull shapes, rivet patterns, and structural modifications. Photographs and videos captured the eerie beauty of rusted decks, twisted propellers, and skeletal superstructures. Shadows danced across metal ribs, and sediments preserved the faint traces of labor. Handholds polished by decades of use, footprints embedded in mud, and the occasional forgotten tool. Public interest exploded when drone footage went viral. Amateur photographers shared images online, long rows of half-submerged vessels, their silhouettes forming ghostly, silent fleets. Comments ranged from awe to disbelief. How can this exist in modern New York? Were these ships ever in battles? Who worked on them? Filmmakers began arriving in force. Documentaries explored the hidden labor history of the harder: tugboat engineers, deckhands, and crews who moved fuel, ammunition, and essential supplies during World War II. Elderly workers who remembered the days of blackouts and convoys were interviewed, their stories adding human faces to otherwise silent wrecks. One of the most compelling narratives centered on a tugboat called the Harbor Sentinel. Though its hull was corroded, archival research revealed that it had guided over a dozen Liberty ships to the docks during critical wartime missions. Crew rosters listed the names of men from diverse backgrounds: Irish, Italian, African American, and Polish laborers whose work had been essential but largely forgotten. The Arthur Kill became more than just a graveyard. It became a classroom. Educators used drone footage, sonar maps, and historical records to teach students about industrial history, wartime logistics, and environmental consequences. Lessons extended beyond mere dates and battles. Students learned about invisible labor, the value of support systems, and the human cost of progress. Yet with public fascination came risk. Urban explorers and amateur divers ventured onto unstable wrecks. Rusted steel collapsed underfoot. Sections of decks gave way. Regulatory agencies issued warnings, but enforcement was difficult. The desire to see history firsthand sometimes conflicted with the need to preserve it. Meanwhile, debates over preservation versus removal intensified. Environmental scientists stressed the hazards of disturbing decades of sediment contaminated with oil, lead, and heavy metals. Historians and preservationists argued for documentation, sometimes advocating for partial preservation or protective measures. Every decision involved balancing safety, history, and accessibility. The graveyard began to symbolize more than just industrial neglect. It became a mirror of American memory. What is celebrated, what is ignored, and what is lost over time. Visitors were no longer just seeing rusted steel. They were confronting the consequences of forgetting. The Arthur Kill, once overlooked and abandoned, was now the center of a cultural and historical awakening. Its vessels, silent for decades, had begun to speak again, not in words, but through steel, sediment, and stories etched into their frames. For the first time, Americans across generations began to see these ships not just as debris, but as monuments to labor, perseverance, and the hidden engines of a nation at war and in peace. As the 2000s unfolded, the Arthur Kill ship graveyard entered the viral age. Social media transformed the once hidden fleet into a worldwide curiosity. Photos, drone footage, and amateur videos circulated across platforms, attracting not just historians and environmentalists, but casual viewers fascinated by the eerie beauty of rusted ships resting in slow, muddy decay. Headlines ranged from factual to sensational. New York's secret ghost fleet revealed. Forgotten ships lying in Staten Island's shadow. World War II relics rusting in plain sight. Some stories stretched the truth. Rumors claimed that the ships were part of clandestine military operations, or that hidden treasure might be buried inside. Others romanticized the vessels as haunted relics, attracting thrill seekers and urban explorers. Amid the sensationalism, real research persisted. Universities partnered with environmental agencies to conduct sonar surveys and mapping projects, producing high-resolution 3D models of the wrecks. Each hull was measured, identified, and documented. Details once invisible, rivets, bulkheads, engine placements, were recorded digitally, preserving a fleeting history against corrosion and time. Documentarians found a wealth of material in these models. Footage of decayed decks, Rusted railings and skeletal superstructures combined with interviews of former harbor workers, creating narratives that were both haunting and human. These videos emphasized that the Arthur Kill was more than a graveyard. It was a record of the unseen labor and logistical efforts that had powered America during wartime and peace. One particular story captured national attention: the tugboat Protector. Built in 1938, it had guided fuel tankers through the harbor during World War II. Researchers reconstructed its service history from payroll records, maintenance logs, and surviving crew testimonies. Its rusted frame, now lying halfway submerged, became a symbol of the countless workers whose labor had gone unrecognized. The viral exposure also drew policy attention. Environmentalists highlighted contamination risks from leaking fuel and decayed materials. Preservationists argued that the historical value outweighed the risk of disturbance, insisting that the ships be documented, if not partially preserved. City and state agencies faced pressure to balance public safety, environmental protection, and historical preservation. As more content went online, public engagement deepened. People began sharing family stories, photographs, and memories related to the ships, contributing to a growing collective history. Students created projects analyzing the vessel's roles in wartime logistics and post-war industrial shifts. Filmmakers and writers drew inspiration for stories about labor, sacrifice, and the invisible engines of history. Yet the Arthur Kill also became a cautionary tale. Its viral fame highlighted the tension between exposure and preservation. Foot traffic, climbing, and souvenir collection posed real threats. Corrosion and sediment shifts continued. Every day, a portion of the fleet was lost permanently. Despite these challenges, the graveyard had achieved something remarkable. What had once been abandoned, invisible, and ignored was now recognized, studied, and remembered. The ships, in their quiet, rusting forms, were teaching a lesson about America's industrial and wartime history, one that was unglamorous, often overlooked, but profoundly important. In this new era, the Arthur Kill ship graveyard was no longer a secret. It was a platform for education, a subject of documentaries, and a symbol of labor and memory, bridging generations and inspiring both curiosity and respect. By the 2010s, the Arthur Kill ship graveyard had become a hub not only for historians and environmentalists, but also for educators and digital archivists. Schools, universities, and museums began using the site to teach lessons that extended far beyond simple maritime history. High-resolution 3D scans and drone footage allowed students to virtually explore the wrecks, examining rusted decks, engine compartments, and hull designs without ever stepping foot on unstable structures. History classes highlighted the wartime roles of tugboats, fireboats, and barges, connecting them to broader narratives of World War II logistics, industrial labor, and urban growth. Environmental science classes studied pollution, corrosion, and artificial reef ecosystems created inadvertently by decades of neglect. Descendants of crew members found themselves unexpectedly involved. Grandchildren of tugboat engineers and deckhands shared family photos, letters, and oral histories, enriching the digital archives. Their contributions humanized vessels that had long been seen as anonymous hulks of steel. One grandson described finding a faded payroll slip in a family trunk, revealing that his grandfather had worked aboard a barge transporting fuel for the war effort. The connection transformed his understanding of history from abstract to intensely personal. Documentary filmmakers continued to draw on this wealth of material. Archival records, drone surveys, and interviews combined with cinematic visuals to create compelling narratives about the unseen forces that kept a nation moving. Audiences learned about logistical genius, human endurance, and the quiet heroism of labor that never made headlines. Conservation efforts, both physical and digital, also expanded. While full restoration of the vessels was impossible due to toxicity, corrosion, and cost, partial preservation became a viable compromise. Some sections were stabilized to prevent collapse, while 3D models and VR experiences preserved the entirety of each vessel virtually. These digital reconstructions allowed future generations to experience history in a way that would have been unimaginable 50 years earlier. At the same time, the site inspired reflection on broader societal issues. The Arthur Kill served as a mirror for America's industrial past, showing both ingenuity and neglect, labor and erasure. Students and visitors began asking uncomfortable questions. How do we remember those whose work was essential but invisible? How do we balance preservation, environmental protection, and urban development? What does it mean to leave behind a graveyard of progress? The graveyard had evolved into more than a collection of ships. It was a living archive, a classroom, and a memorial. Rusted steel became storytelling material. Muddy holds held memories. Every vessel, whether a tugboat, barge, or fireboat, carried narratives of work, sacrifice, and the invisible infrastructure of a city at war and peace. By 2020, the Arthur Kill had achieved a kind of recognition unprecedented for a site so long forgotten. Digital archives allowed worldwide access. Public tours, restricted for safety, provided first-hand glimpses. Educational programs taught students to see history in systems rather than just battles or famous figures. Social media amplified stories, connecting descendants, historians, and enthusiasts. The lesson was clear. The Arthur Kill was not just about ships. It was about human endeavor, labor, and the cost of forgetting. Every rusted hull stood as a monument to those who had built and maintained a nation quietly, without recognition or reward. And as the tides continued to lap against the skeletal frames, the river whispered an enduring truth. History lives not only in victories and monuments, but also in the forgotten engines that kept the world moving. Even today, the Arthur Kill continues to reveal secrets slowly and quietly to those willing to look closely. Researchers, volunteers, and citizen historians work together to uncover vessels that have been forgotten for decades. Each new discovery adds pieces to a vast and intricate puzzle of New York Harbor's industrial past. In recent years, small barges once used for municipal waste in the 1940s were identified, revealing insights into sanitation practices during a time when New York's population was booming. Rusted fireboats were documented, highlighting the challenges of protecting a waterfront city during wartime, when every dock and warehouse was a potential target. Tugboats, often overlooked, became central to understanding how goods, fuel, and personnel moved efficiently across one of the busiest harbors in the world. Citizen historians have played an unexpected but crucial role. Armed with family records, old photographs, and keen curiosity, volunteers cross-reference names, ship numbers, and registry logs with existing surveys. They are often the ones who uncover the small human stories lost in bureaucratic files. Deckhands who worked long nights during harsh winters. Engineers who patched engines under blackout conditions. And crews who moved supplies without recognition or reward. These stories remind the public that history is not only made by leaders or battles, but by the countless individuals who sustain systems. The Arthur Kill, once a forgotten graveyard, now serves as a testament to the invisible labor that built the city and supported wartime America. At the same time, environmental considerations remain paramount. Researchers monitor contamination levels and study the unintended artificial reefs formed by decades of steel and sediment. The wrecks now host small ecosystems, oysters, fish, and migratory birds, adapting to a river once industrial and polluted. Preservation efforts must balance ecological recovery with historical documentation. Disturbing a hull might reveal a story, but it could also release toxins and disrupt a fragile habitat. Educational programs around the Arthur Kill emphasize this delicate balance. Students learn not only about industrial and wartime history, but also about environmental stewardship, urban development, and the complex decisions societies make when confronting their own past. The site teaches that progress has consequences, and that memory requires effort and intention. Through social media and online archives, the Arthur Kill has reached audiences far beyond New York. Videos of its ghostly hulls and submerged decks inspire wonder, curiosity, and reflection. Viewers from across the globe encounter a story of labor, innovation, neglect, and resilience. A story of America that is both hidden and revealing. The symbolic power of the Arthur Kill cannot be overstated. It embodies the hidden frameworks of society, the support systems, the labor, the infrastructure, and the vessels that quietly kept the nation afloat. In its rusted steel, corroded engines, and mud-filled holds, one sees both the ingenuity and the impermanence of human endeavor. And though time continues its relentless work, slowly erasing names, rivets, and decks, the stories live on, digitally, visually, and in the memories of those who dedicate themselves to preserving and interpreting them. The Arthur Kill is not just a ship graveyard. It is a living archive of American history, a reflection of its labor, its environmental challenges, and its capacity to forget and to remember. And in its silence, it still speaks. Even after decades of study, the Arthur Kill continues to surprise researchers. Sonar imaging and underwater LiDAR scans have revealed layers of vessels buried beneath sediment, ships previously thought lost to time. These discoveries are often small, a tugboat's bow jutting from mud, a barge's keel peeking above silt, or a fragmented hull revealing traces of tools and cargo. Each new find sparks excitement. Historians and volunteers rush to identify vessels using archival records, shipyard blueprints, maritime registries, payroll logs, and photographs. One discovery in 2017 involved a small service vessel believed to have assisted in moving munitions during World War II. Its discovery allowed researchers to reconstruct part of a convoy route connecting New York Harbor to European ports in a way never documented before. Volunteers play a critical role. Many are descendants of dock workers, sailors, and engineers whose families worked the harbor. They bring not just historical insight, but personal investment. Old letters, faded employment slips, and family photos are cross-referenced with sonar data, allowing ships to regain names that had been lost to rust and neglect. The work also highlights the delicate balance between preservation and safety. Sediment holds both history and contamination. Some vessels contain residual fuel, asbestos, or heavy metals. Researchers and city agencies coordinate to document and stabilize what they can while avoiding ecological disruption. Some hulls are digitally preserved through 3D scanning, allowing future generations to explore them virtually, even if physical decay continues. Through these efforts, the Arthur Kill has become an educational resource of remarkable scope. Students from middle school to university study the site to understand logistics, wartime labor, and industrial evolution. Lessons extend into environmental science, urban planning, and civic responsibility. The wrecks serve as a tangible illustration of how infrastructure, labor, and environmental policy intersect over decades. The graveyard also fosters public engagement. Social media allows historians, filmmakers, and citizens to share findings in real time. Virtual tours and online archives provide access to those who cannot visit physically. The river has moved from hidden industrial backwater to globally recognized symbol of hidden history, labor, and urban transformation. Yet the Arthur Kill also serves as a cautionary tale. Its rusting vessels remind us that progress often leaves behind what is no longer convenient, visible, or profitable. The site challenges Americans to reconsider how history is remembered and how labor, industry, and environmental stewardship are documented. In many ways, the Arthur Kill has become a monument to the forgotten. Not a monument of marble or bronze, but one of steel, mud, and memory. Each vessel is a storyteller, each hull a chapter in the larger narrative of New York Harbor, industrial America, and the people who powered it. The message is clear. History is not only written in battles, treaties, or political speeches. It is written in quiet, unseen labor, in the vessels that carried fuel, goods, and people, and in the systems that enabled a nation to thrive. And as the tide laps against the rusting steel, the Arthur Kill continues to whisper its stories. Stories of innovation, sacrifice, neglect, and resilience, reminding us that what is forgotten today may be the most vital record of all. These ships were not abandoned by accident. They were left behind on purpose. And what we've uncovered so far is only part of the truth. In the next chapter, we follow the final trail, the decisions, the silence, and the cost of forgetting. If you want to see how this story truly ends, stay with us. This is Hidden History USA.